standing right here? Great, seeing some thumbs up. We got the recording going. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Wow, I get the double screen. This is great. We're gonna fix that when our speakers come on Zoom so that we can see them in a moment. But it's really great to be together here, both in the Beth El Sanctuary, to have friends on Zoom joining us from both here in the East Bay, but also across the world in a lot of cool ways. This is a really special program in collaboration with a really powerful organization called Widen the Circle that we're going to be learning more about and from this evening. But we're gathered here, of course, with our 7th grade class, who in particular has been spending the past month or so diving deeply into Holocaust studies, which is a big part of the 7th grade program. And for our 7th graders and for our larger community to hold on to as well. Caroline, is there a problem?
You need to put this on silent.
Okay, great, thank you. For our 7th graders, right, they've been learning all about the Holocaust and the events that led up to the Holocaust, helping to begin to conceptualize and answer the question of how could something like this, right, how could something that brought on so much hatred, so much destruction, so much death to our Jewish community throughout the Nazi regime, how could that happen? And as they explore through the course of their studies, right, we end with the big picture of how we as Jews often honor and memorialize the most awful parts of our Jewish history, and that's through the lens of memory. We know that the memory of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, lives on within our Jewish tradition, our Jewish spaces. In a couple of weeks, we'll have Yom HaShoah, right, our Jewish day of lifting up the memory of all those who were murdered, who perished in the Holocaust, all those who did the deeply important work of raising their voices so that they could save and bring in individuals, save their lives. We lift up their memory as well. And tonight, that's partly what we're here to do, right? To honor the memory of the Holocaust, to keep that alive within our hearts, to bring in the larger memory of some of the really difficult moments of our American history here, in particular the Tulsa Race Massacre that occurred this century as well. And to hear and learn about the really deeply impactful work that Widen the Circle is involved with to help lift up this memory and these teachings so that these atrocities, these horrors cannot happen again within our communities. Certainly in this moment of time, this is an all-important message that we need to keep turning back towards and keeping within our minds and hearts of how important it is for us to be engaged in this work and to keep the memories of these awful parts of our history alive so that we can make sure we don't march down that path again. That's my way of introducing a bit of this program. I'm going to turn this over to Becky Cohen-Vargas, who was instrumental, the one that brought this program forward for us, who's deeply involved with Widen the Circle, and can share a lot more about how this came together and what we're here to do together this evening.
Thank you, Rabbi Ira, and welcome to all the people in the room and on Zoom. It's wonderful to have the youth here too, and we're going to have an opportunity later for us to talk with each other, either in the room or people in breakout rooms on Zoom. I want to just give a little bit of background. I became aware of Widen the Circle because I nominated a German researcher, Anneke de Ruyter, who helped me find out more about my family's history. And interestingly, today she keeps learning more, and she sent me something about my four greats grandfather, Simon Heinemann. She continues to research, and apparently he had to ask permission to be able to work and have a business in the town of Lüneburg. I won't go into that whole story, but I nominated Anneke for an award with the Obermayer Foundation, which honors Germans who go above and beyond to remember history and to teach other Germans about what happened so it won't happen again, and also to bring Jewish descendants of Holocaust survivors back to meet others from the towns where they came from, and it's a beautiful process of healing. And when I went to Germany for the program that they provide the awards, which happens in Berlin, in the mayor's office, they have this big event, I met Kristi Williams, and I learned about the work of Widen the Circle, that they were expanding the work, not only to think about people who survived the Holocaust or descendants of people who were murdered in the Holocaust, but also to learn about other instances such as the Tulsa Massacre. Just out of curiosity in this room, how many of you learned about the Tulsa Race Massacre in school? So some of the students did, but most of you aren't raising your hands, and I know I certainly didn't learn about it. And we're at a really very hard moment where history is being erased and where people are not allowed to even learn some of the history. And that's what we'll learn from Kristi Williams when she talks about Tulsa, Oklahoma, where it's not legal to teach Black history in school. And she started a program called Black History Saturdays, and you'll learn more about it. And so I wanted to bring this program here to Bethel and to the Bay Area because I feel that we really need to stay unified in our fight against bigotry. And right now we're really spread out and divided and scattered, and we really need to come together in a way that honors the history and the efforts to fight bigotry. And so that's what our program is about. And I'm hoping that you'll learn some new things and you'll get a chance to share some of your feelings. And I just wanted to mention that we have several co-sponsors of this event that are actually here tonight. In Bethel, we have a group called the Belonging Through Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And we have some of the leaders there. Can you raise your hand if you're, Caroline, you're. And then we also have Patrice O'Neill from the organization Not in Our Town, and she's a filmmaker that's been working. Patrice and I protested against the Nazis in Santa Rosa in the 70s, and she makes films, and she made a film some of you may have seen called Repairing the World about the Pittsburgh massacre of Jews in a synagogue, or the shooting in a synagogue in Pittsburgh, called Tree of Life. Can you say it again, Patrice? Stories from the Tree of Life. And if you haven't seen it, it's very powerful. So with no further ado, I want to turn it over, and this is where you're going to see on the screen, we're going to meet Joel Obermayer, who's the leader of the Obermayer Foundation. See how this all turns
hopefully you can all hear me all right. Becky, you guys can hear me okay?
But we can't hear Joel yet.
No, you can't hear me at all. Let me know when I should try again. Still nothing.
We can hear you on Zoom, just so you know. So it's not just a speaker issue.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, my head got even bigger. Those of you in the sanctuary, can you give me a signal to let me know you can hear me? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, great. All right, so first, I just want to thank particularly Rabbi Ira and Becky for all the hard work they put into putting this event together. I'm really excited to be with all of you tonight. I am based in the East Coast, which is where I am right now, but Widen the Circle, which is the organization that I run and founded, has lots of connections to the Bay Area. I won't bore you with all of them, but I'll just say that my brother, who's been involved with our work in various ways, lives in the East Bay. Our editorial director lived in San Francisco for 13 years, and our graphic designer still is in the East Bay. And we come out there from time to time, because we have a lot of friends, people who really understand kind of this work. So anyway, I'm very excited to be with you. And I'm just going to give a very quick introduction. I'm very excited to be here myself, Joel Obermayer, again, founder and executive director of Widen the Circle, and with my tag team partner, Kristi Williams. Kristi, please wave, you bet, who is an organizer and community activist from Tulsa, Oklahoma, certainly related to the Tulsa Race Massacre, and we will talk about that a little bit. But now that I've thanked the organizers, I just want to talk I'm going to talk about Widen the Circle, but I want to talk for a moment about the moment we find ourselves in right now. And I should just say, it's exciting both to have a group of adults in the room who have different connections to the work that we do or work that's adjacent to what we do. It's very exciting also to have a group of students who've been studying things that are adjacent to what we're doing. My only disappointment is that I can't actually see you. So maybe at some point we'll get a chance to turn the camera around so I can see all the people there. No hurry, but that'd be pretty cool. So let me just say, let me talk about the moment for a second. And this is not something that people here don't know, but maybe this is one way to think about it. Okay, and so here's one way to think about it. There is a war going on right now against memory. It's not just against history, although that's part of it. It's literally against remembering things or altering the way things that are remembered. And here's the thing about remembrance. If you don't remember, you cannot address certain kinds of issues. Let's say bigotry, anti-Semitism, racism, injustice, right? You cannot address those things if you cannot remember, or you can't remember the truth anyway, because you've taken away the reason to deal with them at all. And so erasing memory for preventing remembrance is really a recipe for more anti-Semitism, more bigotry, more racism. And, that's the moment that we're in. And I would just say, widen the circle, and both in our work and our work with people like Kristi Williams, we are pushing back against this tide. And so I just want you to think about that a little bit as we go through this. We'll hear from Kristi really soon. But first, I want to just introduce Widen the Circle and what we do, just so you have some context about it. And so I'm going to tell you briefly what we do, but then I'm going to tell you a story, which will really put it into perspective. So Widen the Circle, we confront long-standing injustice, right? There's that word that requires memory, long-standing injustice, rooted in racism, anti-Semitism, and attacks on historic memory and democratic values in Germany and the United States. And we do this by empowering amazing people that we run into. We call them remembrance activists. It's not a term that we normally use in the United States, but I'm hoping to give you a sense of what a remembrance activist is tonight, in part by a few examples and in part by just hearing from Kristi, who's here with us. So we empower local remembrance activists who expose legacies of persecution, so histories of persecution, and use the lessons of that history to bring communities together to create more understanding and to promote healing. All of those things are true. Those are also pretty general ideas, and I want to make this much more specific. And the way for me to make it much more specific is to tell you a story. And so I'm going to do it now. And I don't know all the stories that people in this room might have on their own, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of your favorite stories start with your family members. And this one starts with my father. So my father was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman. He was a scientist. And he was a guy who liked to start things. He started several businesses. That's one of the ways he made money. He started various nonprofit organizations. He had all sorts of stuff that he was interested in different times. Maybe some of you in the audience know someone like this. They're just people really who are kind of dynamos. And at one point in my father's life, he got really interested in researching his own family tree, his family ancestry. And so he started making trips to Germany because all four of his grandparents came from southern Germany. They all emigrated in the 1800s. He had a lot of family that remained, and so there are many people who were affected by the Holocaust, but his own particular ancestors were in the United States. But he wanted to learn about them and about their background. And he started making trips to little cities and towns in southern Germany. And he kept running into people doing things there that you just would never expect to see. And he came back with stories about them. And I'm going to tell you just a few snippets of those stories to give you kind of a flavor of them. So in one town, he ran into a woman who was not Jewish. She had met some Jews in her life, but not a lot. But she had taught herself from scratch how to read Hebrew, which is unusual. And the reason she taught herself Hebrew was that she had moved to this town many, many years after the war, maybe 30, 40 years later. And there had been a Jewish community in this town that had been completely wiped out. And it didn't take her long after she moved to this little town to find that there was a Jewish cemetery that had been part of this Jewish community that had been destroyed during the war and was just lying there in ruins. And she decided that somebody needed to fix it. She decided it would be her. And as she was fixing it piece by piece, she realized she needed to know how to read the community's records, which were all in Hebrew, in order to be sure that she was fixing it in the right way. And so she just taught herself Hebrew from scratch. So that's one story. Second one, it's different, but maybe it rhymes a little bit. So there was a musician, a cellist actually, who was renovating a historic building in the center of her town. And she discovered that it had once belonged to a big extended Jewish family with, brothers and sisters, but also cousins, like huge extended family that had been wiped out in the Holocaust. And it led her, she got really interested in it. It led her to start researching more about what happened to the family members. And over time, she began to realize actually that there were some survivors. She found a little strand of survivors in the United States, just a couple. She found a few in the United Kingdom. She found a few in the Netherlands. She found a few in Israel. She found a few in Brazil. And what was amazing about them is that none of these little strands of survivors, just a few people here and there, they didn't know each other existed. And so in a very real way, when she brought them together, which is what she did, she created a family. Like she literally gave them a family. I know one of the members of this family, and she a woman, and she will tell you that she grew up knowing that she only had 2 family members in her life, her brother and a cousin, because everybody else had died in the Holocaust. And in just a period of a few years, this musician came into her life, and now she has a family of 40 people on 3 continents, which is pretty cool. All right, let me give you one more snippet. This is about an organization, a group, in an area of Germany where the far right is really strong. There's a really strong activity in this part of Germany among neo-Nazis. It's unfortunate to say, but it's true. And it's an area that was part of former communist East Germany. And right now, the far right there is very, very strong. And this organization wanted to create an alternative for young people who did not want to be part of the neo-Nazi gangs that were around town. And they didn't have any place to go. And so they created this organization. It's called, in German, it's called Treibhaus. In English, you would call it greenhouse, like a place where plants grow. And, not only did they give kids an alternative, a place to go, but they started doing really good, what I'd call remembrance work about the Jewish community that used to be in this little town they're in. And the kids do this work also. And they do it for a variety of reasons, but one of the key reasons is when they do public things that are about remembering the Jewish community in this town, it literally shows that their values are different from the neo-Nazis. And it kind of proclaims that they're there and what they stand for. And it's a powerful statement that allows other people to come to their cause. So it's not just a historical thing, it's actually almost a political statement in a way. Anyway, so these 3 little snippets are not the same at all, but they kind of rhyme in a way, if you think about it. All profound work of different sorts. And my father ran into all this work, and he would come back to the United States and he would tell friends and other people he knew, including a number of Jews that he knew who also had family that came from, descended from places in Germany. And I should say some of them are actually on Zoom right now. Like Ken Hirschfelder, for example, who's up there, is kind of in that camp. And my father would talk to these people and he would find similarly amazing, different stories, but other amazing things that people have been doing. Again, they kind of rhymed. And one of the themes that was really common in these things that people were doing, like that cellist, for example, is they were doing all of this amazing work in a field where they were not a professional. They were not trained to be historians. They weren't museum people or something like that. Again, it was a musician or a doctor or a postal worker or a bookkeeper doing this work. And because they were most of them weren't professional, my father saw that they often ran into all sorts of problems where it might be tough for them to accomplish something because they weren't professional at it. And my father was the guy who liked to start things. And so he said, I know what we should do. We should honor these people. We should start an award. And we should give them this award because they deserve it. But even more because we can raise their profile. We can make more people aware of their work. And maybe that would help them accomplish more. And he also had this idea that I think is true, that Jews who live all around the world, who know about the Holocaust, there are many Jews even now who are very uncomfortable with the idea of owning anything that has a German name, and might think about Germany as a country as just kind of a black hole that we wouldn't want to go near. And you can kind of understand it given what we know about the history. And my father wasn't automatically trying to fix that exactly. He just thought if you knew about this cellist in this family that you reunited, you would have a more nuanced view. And so he arranged with some other people to have an award ceremony at a historic old synagogue in Berlin in the year 2000, so 25 years ago. They had a ceremony. They honored several people, including some of the people I just mentioned. And at the end of the ceremony, my father's standing there, and it turns out that the president of the Berlin Parliament, we don't have parliaments in the US, but nonetheless, the president of the Berlin Parliament was in the audience, comes up to my father and he says, this is lovely. This is lovely what you're doing. You should consider holding the ceremony in Parliament. And my father was no fool. And he said, okay, we should do that. And that is literally why, for the last 25 years, the main formal observance of International Holocaust Remembrance Day at the Berlin Parliament, and more recently also at the City Hall, is this thing called the Obermayer Awards, which started in exactly this way, and still honor people doing really amazing work that you just wouldn't expect to see. Anyway, all right, so now I can jump forward. What is Widen the Circle? So I have made it my life's work to continue my father's work and to extend it. I had another job and did other things until really quite recently, like 5-6 years ago, when I've gotten involved in this work. And the way I've thought about extending this work is, it's important to preserve history, for sure, but why do you preserve it? And the reason I think, or one key reason, is because you want to use it to have an impact on what's happening now and in the future. And to do that, I founded something called Widen the Circle. And let me just remind you of our mission. Widen the Circle confronts long-standing injustice rooted in racism, anti-Semitism, and attacks on historic memory and democratic values. And we do that in Germany and the United States. We do that by empowering amazing local people we call remembrance activists, who expose legacies of persecution and use the lessons of history to bring communities together and to promote healing. And to do that, we have really 3 programs. What do we do? So first we have Obermayer Awards, these awards that we run each year, which you've heard a bit about. The second is if you want to have an impact on what's happening now, and you have all these activists who you've given awards to over many, many years, maybe you should start bringing them together and beginning to build a network. And so we have a network of over 300 activists, remembrance activists all across Germany, who do work that relates to remembering, but also relate to fighting prejudice in a modern context, in the modern world. And then the third program we have, which is in a way partly why we're here tonight, is we have a fellowship program that brings together American remembrance activists who are working on some of the most difficult or important issues that relate to memory, that relate to remembrance here in the United States. And we bring them together with our people in our network in Germany in a year-long program. It's anchored by a trip. And we try and use that to catalyze their further work, both by ourselves, but also by the relationships that we create. And Kristi Williams is one of our fellows from this past year. And I would just say one more thing about the fellowship. So when I say these amazing people, I talk about remembrance activists. Let me just give you a few examples. In past years, we've had, for example, people who work in a profound way around issues around the Underground Railroad and how are we going to memorialize that, let's say in places where it was most active. Some of you may know the name Emmett Till, who was a 14-year-old African-American boy who was killed in Mississippi in 1955. He was lynched, and his death in a very real way led to some of the strongest and most important early activities of the civil rights movement. And we're going to talk to Kristi in a second. Another example of somebody who's joining us this year in our fellowship is the woman who runs the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh, which we talked about earlier. Becky, I know you just mentioned that. So Carol Zawatsky, who is the CEO of the Tree of Life, is actually one of our fellows this year. And what they're doing is in that site, where in 2018, 11 Jews were murdered, they are creating something new. They're creating a memorial. They're creating a synagogue because they need to rebuild the synagogue. And they're creating an education institute that deals with issues of prejudice and anti-Semitism. And so she, in a very real way, is a remembrance activist, and she'll be joining us in this program starting, actually the program literally started today. Okay. And I would just say one more thing, which is we have participants from the Bay Area this year, including at least one from the East Bay, and this woman from the Tree of Life actually used to do programming for one of the GACCs in the Bay Area. Okay. So as I said, that's the fellowship, and I think it's probably time for me to turn to Kristi Williams, because Kristi is not somebody who I want to keep waiting. So let's put her up. And Kristi Williams joins us from Oklahoma. Hey, Kristi.
Hey.
Good to see you. I'm going to give you a little bit of bio so that we can, everybody has a little bit of sense of your background, and then we'll jump right into it. So Kristi Williams is a descendant of a survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And let me just give you a little bit background on the massacre. Kristi will be able to give you much more, but I'm just going to give just a little tidbit. So the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre was essentially an anti-Black pogrom. It was an attack by hundreds of white people on a neighborhood called Greenwood in Tulsa, which at the time was sometimes called Black Wall Street. It was an extremely affluent African-American neighborhood, maybe the most affluent one in the country. And it was totally leveled by this pogrom, and hundreds of people were killed. So Kristi's from Tulsa. She's a descendant of a survivor of the massacre. She's also an organizer, community advocate, and an artist dedicated to social justice causes. Kristi started working on issues of history and memory more than a decade ago. She eventually became an advocate, actually, for survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And as far as I know, there's still 2 of them who are alive, I believe. Yep, okay, good, I got that one right. And she helped make their stories known and worked to ensure the stories would be remembered. And while there has been progress in some areas, these efforts have not always been successful. And as Becky mentioned, more recently, Kristi founded something called Black History Saturdays. And Black History Saturdays, honestly, very much is what it sounds like. It's a pioneering institution in North Tulsa that teaches African-American history that's not able to be taught in schools. She does that with members of the community. Her students, I believe, let's see if I get it right, are ages 4 to 90, which is a pretty broad range. And she's also created a library of banned books, because literally there are 150 books that have been banned from public schools and from libraries in many parts of Oklahoma. Last year, Kristi won a prestigious Wayfinder Award from the National Geographic Society, which means she is the only person I know who has the title of a National Geographic Explorer. And Kristi was also a participant in Widen the Circle's 2024 fellowship program. And Kristi, you know how much it makes me smile to be able to tell a little bit about you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to Rabbi Ira and Becky as well. Thank you.
Yeah. And so what I'd like to do now is just have a little conversation with you. And I'm wondering if you know, I said a little bit, but really not that much. Can you briefly explain what Black History Saturdays is and why you founded it?
Black History Saturdays was a form of resistance to a House bill that was done here in 2021, actually, by Governor Stitt, Governor Kevin Stitt, our governor of Oklahoma, where it's called House Bill 1775. And basically, it's restricting Black history from being taught in public schools. And his words exactly was, we don't want to teach anything that's going to make white young students uncomfortable. And so anything based on race or gender is restricted in public schools.
So this House bill was signed into law. So this is like a law that basically governs what can happen in schools. Is that right?
Yes, yes, and it's very vague. So if a teacher recommends a book that has been banned or teaches anything that makes anybody uncomfortable, they're going to get in trouble. And that has happened. We have had teachers who have been fired from their jobs and has lost their teaching certification. And banned books, as Joel, you talked about. There are over 100 banned books here in Oklahoma, but they are banning books throughout the country. There are 18 other states that have the same laws where they are banning or have banned Black history from being taught in public schools. And when we speak about the banned books, there's been 10,000 books between 2023 and 2024 that have been banned, which tripled the number of the year previously before that.
And you mean all across the country, right?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
across the country.
Got it. Okay. Now let me just ask you, I'm going to stick with Oklahoma just for a second, only because I think it's really instructive. My understanding, and you will tell us a little more, is one of those books, and I'm thinking about the students we have in the audience here. One of those books is The Diary of Anne Frank.
Yes.
Banned in Oklahoma. Can you tell us a couple others that maybe people might have heard of or even read that are kind of on this list? Because I think it gives you sort of a flavor of what's going on. So
yes.
what other books are on this list?
Other books are The Outsiders, Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, How to Kill a Mockingbird, The Lord of Flies, which I dreaded reading that book in high school. I had to do a book report on that book, but it is banned. And there's so many more books, The Color Purple, the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, banned. These books are banned, and the numbers are just growing. They're just growing.
And the logic behind this is just that they make certain students feel uncomfortable. Is that right?
That's the narrative that they're saying, but we know the reason why when government gets involved to ban books, they're wanting to control your thoughts and what you know. And then comes with that, the banning of curriculum, the banning of teachers, right? The banning of museums that is about to happen. So that all stems from banning books. It's a ripple effect.
Okay, so that sounds pretty serious. I'm wondering maybe if we can just turn to this. We just talked about, we've named Black History Saturdays. We haven't really talked that much about what you actually do there. So maybe you could give us a little sense of that, because it's hard, it's important to talk about the banning of books, but it's I would love to hear about some of the work that's going the other direction. So tell
Thank
us a little
you.
bit about it.
Yeah, because I'll get all upset and start this going. Uh, but Black History Saturdays is a school. It's an actual school that I created. A friend of mine purchased this old school building, and so we actually used the school building. And Black History Saturdays is a school. It's pre-K to adults. I organize educators by those grades. And breakfast is at 8:45, class is at 9:15, lunch is at 12:30. We even have recess for the littles. And it ends at 2:45. So it is a school day. It's just on a Saturday, and we're learning Black history. And we even learn through food. During our lunch, I have a chef who prepares meals from around the country. So the community are getting like meals for the first time, like Caribbean meals. They've had food from Nigeria, and even things here from New Orleans, like shrimp and grits and those type of things. And they get a history lesson from the chef about the foods that they're eating. So everything on Black History Saturdays is definitely a lesson. It is a Black history lesson, and we have all types of people. We have, of course, we have a lot of Black people. We have white people. We have and we have a lot of families who have blended biracial families as well. And we have white families who have adopted Black children. They're just wanting to come in and learn history. When I started this school in 2023, I had 120 participants. This is my third year, and I have 353 participants. And so it is growing, and it's a blessing. It definitely is. And for the first 2 years, I did this without any grants. And so I'm grateful that National Geographic gave $100,000 to kick off my third year. So that was a huge relief to help with that. And so we're going to keep continuing to do this work. And I'm so grateful for Widen the Circle. And I was gonna start going back on about how you guys helped me with the books, but I'll let you kick that off.
I promise we'll get there. Can you maybe say a little bit about the kind of people who are your educators? What kind of people are teaching Black History Saturday?
My educators is a very interesting mix. I have two who are college professors. I have my city councilor, Vanessa Hall Harper, who is an educator there. And the other ones are still teaching in public schools. They are literally.
So they're public school teachers are teaching at Black History Saturdays.
They are public school teachers. And when I started Black History Saturdays, I had a hard time finding educators who wanted to do this. They said, Kristi, it's a great idea, but I'm close to retirement. I want my retirement. I'm afraid I may lose my job, and I totally understand that. So I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I almost gave up. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this without teachers. And at the very last minute, one of my good friends, India Carr, who I had come on as an instructional coach, she said, Kristi, I found some teachers who want to teach at Black History Saturdays. And I was just blown away. And these are teachers who have 15 to 25 years of experience teaching. And so it is awesome. And these teachers are loving the autonomy and the freedom to teach without teaching to a test, and just having the creativity in their curriculum and lesson plans as well.
Wow, great. And am I right that you're not the only place where somebody's trying to do this? My understanding is that people have been in touch with you about founding similar institutions in other places. Can you just say a couple words about that?
So I've received numerous emails and calls, and I still don't know how some people got my phone number, but they did. And they were trying to figure out, how can I start this in my community? And some people have. I had some people say, Kristi, they're starting these Black history schools in Florida. They took it from you. And I was like, no, I wanted them to be inspired by it. And so I'm super glad that they are doing that that work.
Great. So now I want to turn a little bit to kind of the Widen the Circle side of things a little bit. and eventually we're going to talk very specifically about the Library of Man books.
Mhm.
Can you just talk a little bit about the value of traveling to Germany and connecting to remembrance activists there? And I would just say, for the benefit, particularly, I know since we have students in the audience, it'll be, I think, particularly instructive for them to know, like, both traveling to Germany, connecting to the Holocaust history that you saw there, and what you
Mhm.
feel like is kind of relevant about it for your work.
Mhm. Well, when I went to Germany, it really it was like being godsmacked for me, because I wanted to learn more about the Holocaust, and I learned so much that I did not know, and which was it was totally life changing. And what I took from that was, when we were in Berlin, I saw memorials, I saw plaques, I saw the gold
The stumbling stones, right? The
yes,
little
the
plaques
stumbling
in the sidewalk.
right.
Right, these are plaques in the sidewalk that memorialize somebody who used to live in the house that they're in front of.
Mm-hmm,
Very
mm-hmm.
cool, Germany. Keep going,
And
Kristi.
yeah, and seeing those there, it was just like, wow, I'm in a country where remembering has been part of its public life. And back home in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre happened, where 40 city blocks was burned and then bombed, and just to kind of just to give the kids some concept of that, these Black people, who my great aunt, and I'm not that old, I'm not that old, so this was not that long ago, but my great aunt was in the Dreamland Theater when the massacre happened. But these people were descendants, direct descendants from enslaved Africans from slavery. And they came to Oklahoma before it was Oklahoma. It was Indian Territory. Oklahoma didn't become a state until 1907. But they came and they built a neighborhood called Greenwood. And Greenwood had banks, hospitals, schools, clothing stores, grocery, you name it, they had it. And there were some people who were unhappy and who felt that Black people didn't deserve to live that
Mhm.
kind of life. And so they burned it. And not only did they burn it, again, they bombed it, and they killed hundreds of people and left over 10,000 people homeless. And this country, this state of Oklahoma, has never really, no justice have been served. There has been no justice served. And it was just in 2021 that the city of Tulsa apologized
Hmm.
for what happened. And this has been buried. It's been buried. And a lot of you in the room tonight, you've heard the term never forget. And that's a part of the reason why we're here tonight, because we can never forget what both of our ancestors has went through. And as Joel said, we're in a time now where they're wanting to erase our history. And so we can't never forget what our ancestors went through. So we have to remember their names. We have to hold accountable the systems that were responsible for what happened, because there's been no justice. There's been no justice for what has happened.
Yeah. Let me just ask you, on our fellowship program, of course, you came to Germany. We talked about that a little bit. But you were also with a group of other remembrance activists, both from the United States, from Germany, kind of. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it was like for you to be part of a program like that. What's it, and particularly, what's it like to be part of a community of activists when maybe you don't have the same kind of community activists where you are located?
Yeah, so at the time when I went to Germany, I was really feeling down. I felt that I was pushing this brick wall by myself, being an activist here, and I was so happy to. It's like I have a new family through my fellowship, and these group of wonderful people were doing similar work, And I felt so relieved being around these people. I didn't feel alone in the work. And not only was I so inspired by the work that they were doing, but they were offering to help me in my work. So it's helpful when you have someone to help you hold your arms up when your arms get tired. And that's what happened. And I remember being at the Burning Book Memorial in Berlin, and where the Nazis burned over 20,000 books. And it just hit me. I mean, I just cried because I was coming back home to fight the banning of books in Oklahoma. So where in Berlin, they were taking pride in overcoming such craziness, and I'm going back home to where we're banning books. And I wanted to create a banned book library. And my friend here who's on the Zoom, Kent, I see Kent up there. Kent said, you know what? We can help get you some books. And we're going to do this. And because of Kent helped me kickstart my banned book library. He not only got me one title to the books that were banned, I got like 3 and 4 titles of each book that was banned. And it's just so helpful to have people like that. And then others who are helping to help me build a museum here in Greenwood on the land of my church, the historic Vernon AME Church. And so I have a family now that I can vent to, throw ideas around. Before I do something major, I can say, hey, what do you think about this? And so it's so refreshing that I have that. And I would not have had that if I had not went to Germany. And I would not have created that banned book library had I not been to Germany to be inspired to do something. And there's still so many things that I've learned from my trip there that I want to implement here in Oklahoma.
Oh. I just want to not even clarify something, but just repeat it really. So the idea for the banned book library really came through standing there at the place where these thousands of books were burned because they had some association with Jews, right? That's what the book memorial is, which is really, really powerful. And I guess the other thing I just thought was worth mentioning, the museum that you mentioned, the one that you're trying to put together, part of where you've gotten help is from people in our fellowship. After they go through the travel part, they are together for the whole year. And there is an opportunity for them to present challenges to one another and to get help thinking through some of these things. And I guess, anyway, I just want to make sure we know that that's, where this issue of how to do this museum came up. Let me move forward with one more thing, and then I think we're probably going to want to get to the next section of the event, since I know people in the room are probably eager to talk. Look, it is a very tough time for memory. We said that, or I said that, you said that, lots of other people know it. I mean, none of this is a surprise. I've seen some of the comments in chat, so I think a lot of people are aware. And one of the things that we think about at Widen the Circle is that, change can happen in a lot of different ways. In Germany, for example, even though there are big memorials and other things that you can see now related to the Holocaust, the truth is that Germans didn't always want to remember. And a lot of the changes that have happened over time, not all of them, but a lot of them, have come from people in little local neighborhoods or little towns who asked questions about the history, who wanted to remember what happened, wanted to know what happened, and change began to bubble up from underneath. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that, as I said, sometimes things can bubble up even when, at a higher, at a national level or something, things are really not going well. And I'll just use that as my summary for how things are going in the United States. But I was just saying, very recently, Kristi, I know you got some good news, actually, even with all the national background. Can you talk to us a little bit about the progress that was made recently? I realize it may not solve everything, but the fact that there's positive developments at a time like this is really a great thing to hear. So tell us a little bit about what happened recently.
You mean with Black History Saturday's exposure, or?
No, I'm sorry. I should have said with the question of reparations, with the question of progress for descendants of people who dealt with the Tulsa Race Massacre. I should have said that, sorry.
That's okay. So yes, when we talking about, reparations, there has been no reparations at all for what happened from the massacre. And when you come to Greenwood today, you don't see the Greenwood that was.
No.
It's totally gentrified. It's people lost homes. It's not what it was. And so the Department of Justice, actually, they did investigation, and in their report in January, they stated that what happened in Greenwood was a coordinated military style attack, because white people wanted the land. And that was so powerful. And that really, I think, moved this city to want to do something. So the mayor, G.T. Bynum, who's our Republican mayor before January, he's decided on his way out, of course, that he would sign an executive order to create a reparations commission, which is called the Beyond Apology Commission, which I chair. And we have a fund, a housing fund of $75 million for through our Save Our Homes initiative. And he said we could use some of those funds for reparations. We requested $25 million from that fund to give $25,000 down payments to descendants descendants of the massacre, for those Black folks who were harmed from 1921. And so we have a lot of other initiatives coming. They have moved the mayor. We have a new mayor who's our first Black mayor in Tulsa. And he is really working with our commission on making this a reality. And so I will tell you that he's going to make some things happen. He's pushed the date further to June 1st. He did create June 1st as the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre Day. So it is a city holiday now that will kick off June 1st. And on that day, he's going to announce how we're going to implement this housing reparations package that's going to happen. And it was modeled after Evanston, Illinois, where the first reparations bill was passed. And that's who we modeled that after, their housing reparations program. And so it is one step closer. And I'm sure when he makes this announcement, you'll probably be reading about it because it's going to be craziness, but it's going to happen. And I'm super happy about this progress. In this work of activism and policy, it's that slow drop of water that puts the hole in the stone. And I am so glad that I am standing on the shoulders of those who did a lot of this work before me. And now we're finally getting to see some type of justice.
Gotcha. And I think it's worth just noting, this is after decades and decades and decades of no progress. And now we're seeing we're seeing movement, which is amazing. All right. Look, I could talk to you much longer, but I think hopefully people who have joined us both on Zoom and particularly in the room have gotten kind of a little sense of Widen the Circle, a sense of the work that you've done, Kristi. And as I understand it, now would be a good time, I think. I think Becky's going to join us and kind of introduce a breakout topic so people can have a little bit of discussion, and we'll have some time for Q&A. So can I turn it over to folks who are in the room? Becky, I see you've got the microphone.
Yes, so we always like at this congregation to have a moment for people to talk to each other, to really process and think about what you heard, how it feels, how questions you have, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions to Kristi and Joel after that. So we're going to have the questions projected on this front screen, and in a minute I'll have people get up. The fact that we're multi-generational in this room gives us a great opportunity, so I really encourage people to get up and form little groups of 4 or 5 people for the questions. And So we thought of 2 questions, and you may not get to all of them, and you may also have other things you want to talk about, but how has remembrance impacted you or your life in whatever way this idea has come over to you through today? And then the second one is, how do you feel about remembrance and its potential to make a difference in dealing with racism, bigotry, and anti-Semitism? So these are the 2 questions. We're going to have about 8 minutes for you to talk with each other. And on Zoom, you'll be put in breakout rooms, and you'll have the questions in the chat. Do you have any questions for me before I let you loose? Jerry? That's exactly what I think too. So, and everybody just get up and walk over and introduce yourself and form little groups of 4 or 5. What? Oh, we only have, oh, okay. I made a mistake when I introduced the co-sponsors, and we also have the Jewish Community Relations Council as one of the co-sponsors of this event. Are any of you here from the JCRC? I don't know, I can't see on Zoom if any of you are from the JCRC. Well, we're very grateful to them as well, the Jewish Community Relations Council, for participating. So this is a time where let's hear a little of what came out in your conversations, and then we'll also open up to questions for Kristi and Joel. I also wanted to mention that I heard as I was walking around that Passover is actually a holiday of remembrance. It's a holiday where we remember when we were slaves in Egypt, and we go through the story, and that moment of memory gets passed on from generation to generation. What other things did people talk about in your groups?
And we're gonna ping pong between friends on Zoom and friends here in the sanctuary too. So on Zoom, you can just give us a wave. Would anybody like to share first here in the sanctuary?
Is there a hand in the? Randy Thompson, do you have a question? Comment? I don't know. Missed it. Let's see. Keep your hand up or use your Zoom hand, that'll help. Don.
Thank you, Becky. So, I think one of the things that I wanted to say, not so much about what we talked about, which was plenty, but I feel like I, in a certain way, sort of profoundly connected with Jan and Esty after just spending a couple of minutes with them. And that is part of the purpose of tonight's program. So it was a pleasure meeting both of you, and thanks for allowing me to participate in this.
Well, thanks. That's why we can't have an event without a moment to connect, because connecting with each other is exactly what we're here for. I saw a hand back there.
Rabbi Strauss, here you go. So I did not get a chance to share this with the group, but because of the Obermayer Foundation and other things, my family got reconnected with our family's best friends in Germany who were separated during the war. They were not Jewish. But the story I want to tell is there's a town in Germany, a small village, where there had been a synagogue. Today, there are no Jews left in that town. But in the town square, 3 times a day, Shachrit, Mincha, and Mariv, there's a bell that goes off, reminding people there was once a vibrant Jewish community here. They would come every day to pray. That community is no longer here. And what it says to me when I think about it is, imagine if we could do that in America, where there had been slave quarters, when there had been people enslaved, when there had been people, fill in the blanks of all the things that we should be remembering. And we're purposely blocking those memories today.
That actually, I had an opposite experience in Berlin last year, going to with the fellowship program, and Kristi, you'll probably remember that too. Going to a synagogue where a vibrant community is actually starting, and it also moved me because a lot of the music in the service were the same pieces that I grew up in, the synagogues that I grew up in, and here they were. I was sitting next to a woman who was in her 50s studying to be a rabbi, and so it gives me a chill. Jews are back, but just like there, just like here, we have to really guard against some of the hate that's out there and not forget about that either. Other questions? We don't have the people on the screen. Anyone else in here? Ira, can you also get the screen back in case someone out there has a question?
Rebecca doing that. Here we go. Perfect.
Okay. Questions for Kristi? Questions for Joel? Any other thoughts or questions?
Thank you, Kristi. I really appreciate you being here. And we, as a family, make charitable donations every year, and we would like to know, are you running a 501c3 that can have my employer match if we make donations?
I do, but
I think we can't hear you, although we don't see she's on mute.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I do. But I'm here to help raise money for Widen the Circle. So I do want to put that out there. And because, Widen the Circle, we do want to support it because, when communities support each other across cultural and historical lines, I mean, we become stronger. And so I really do want to support that. So I would love to take your money for Black History Saturday. I wanted to go to Widen the Circle.
Can I just add a little?
We are handing out a little paper, and then I'll let you. Sorry, we're handing out a little paper at the end with links to the different organizations.
Sure,
and Widen the Circle, and to
Becky, can I add one more thing? I don't know if you can hear me all right.
Yes.
For those of people who have registered for this event, or if you're live, I guess if we get your email address, we will send you after this event, like an email with some more of the stories related to some of the work that we do. It'll have a way for you to get involved with us, like so you can invest in us if you want. And we'll also make sure that it has a link to Kristi Williams' organization. And Kristi, I really appreciate the way you said that. The truth is that we want to also make sure that your organization thrives. And so we will make sure that there's a link so you can take a look at that and do what you will to support both. That's all.
I had a question for Kristi from something you said at another event that I went to where you spoke, and you talked about the fact that nobody knew where the bodies were thrown from the massacre, and there was only one survivor on the side of the people who did the massacre who helped. It was a child. Can you tell that story? Who helped you find where the bodies were buried in an open grave, I believe.
Great question, Becky. And actually, the community, the people there, the Black people in that community, they knew where the bodies were. And even the city of Tulsa knew where the bodies were, but they kept it hidden. But there was a young kid at the time. His name was Clyde Eddy. He was 12 years old. And as an adult, he kept telling people where these bodies were. And nobody would listen to him. Nobody, they were like, nope, we're not going to follow through with it. But when G.T. Bynum decided to do the mass graves investigation, even then, we said, let's look where Clyde Eddy said the bodies were. No one looked there. They looked all around it. And then when that was the last spot they chose to look. And that's where the bodies were, exactly where Clyde Eddy said it was. And so he carried that story as an 11-year-old kid with him all the way to that. I think he was like in his 70s when he told where those bodies were. And so it shows the importance of storytelling. It shows the importance of passing down these stories, and being courageous enough to do so. And so because of Clyde Eddy, there was at least one family who got to uh, take their loved ones home.
Other questions?
There was a question in
Carol?
chat. Oh, sorry.
Just to thank you very much for the work that you're doing and what you're bringing not only to Tulsa, but, you know, hopefully it would be great to have other, you know, that day recognized elsewhere, especially throughout this country, because I think it's, you know, it would be really significant. Just like we have Juneteenth. You know, maybe there's a way to do that too. But thank you for all your work. That's just great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If there, oh, there's Jane.
So I just want to say a thank you also, Kristi, for your wonderful work. And Joel, thank you for your amazing work. And just to let you know that there are people here at Bethel who are actually right now in these last few months studying what we might do about reparations here in Berkeley, California. So we're learning a lot listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know it's probably dinner time and people, are there, oh, there's a question, Rebecca?
I'm just going to ask a question that was
You're
in
on mute.
chat.
No, you're good.
There.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a question that was in chat. Kristi, how can anyone get involved with Black History Saturdays remotely? Is there a way they can experience one of the lessons, or is it all in person?
Right now, it's all in person. In May, we're actually going to have opportunities for people to stream to get a Black History lesson. So follow Black History Saturdays. You can go to blackhistorysaturdays.com, and that information will be posted on the website as well. So you can just Google Black History Saturdays and it'll all pop up. But follow us so that way you can stay tuned to the online sessions that will be happening in May.
So I actually am going to hand out something, Kent, right before I'll let you speak. We're going to hand out a sheet here, and in the chat, you'll have the link to the Black History Saturdays as well as Pen America that has the banned book list and information. Carlos Hill is on the board of Widen the Circle. He's a professor and has written books about the Tulsa Race Massacre, so we also have a link to that here. So I'm going, let's see, Kent, I saw your hand, you can go.
Yeah, just as an FYI, it was mentioned earlier about Stumbling Stones, one of the biggest decentralized remembrance projects in the world. There are 120,000 of these throughout Europe embedded in the ground. This is a duplicate of one that was placed for my great uncle in Krefeld, Germany, and I use it when I speak. So that's what they look like.
So I'm going to hand it over to Rabbi Ira. Thank you, everyone on Zoom, and thank you, everyone in the room. And Rabbi Ira is going to close us out, and I'll hand out the little sheets.
Well, I think a lot of the thank yous have gone around, but certainly a huge thank you, Joel and Rebecca, for bringing Widen the Circle to our community, and hopefully a partnership that can continue on into the future. And Kristi, thank you so much for sharing all of your amazing work of justice that you're doing within your community and planting the seeds for a framework that hopefully can be replicated across our country and across the world as well. The one thing that's really sitting with me just to bring closing to all of this, and Becky, you named this, is that we are coming upon our holiday, our sacred season of, you know, lifting up our sacred memory, our sacred story, our sacred myth of the Exodus, something that as Jews we're charged to remember and turn towards every single year, this idea that we need to, and we're commanded to, take care of the neighboring communities around us, and how we can see our own generation and our own experience within the story of the Exodus. And it's just making me wonder what we can add to our own Seders this year, right, to lift up the messages of justice and freedom and equality, certainly that we want to see continued within our Jewish communities and our American communities, and certainly, Kristi, the deep work that you're involved with in lifting up stories of the Black American communities and your histories as well. And just a charge for all of us, right? An invitation for all of us to how we can bring these messages into our own sacred retelling this year as we come upon our own Seder. So we're going to say Lila Tov for now. Thank you again, and we'll see everybody soon.